How much? What? That's in yen, right? Dollars? Oh, you are deliberately taking advantage of people.
So Beyond Light is out, and I've spent the last few days really trying to experience everything that it has on offer. The new campaign, Europa, the new supers, and I want to give you guys my first impressions of the expansion so far. And I'm going to be completely honest with you guys right now. I'm really not impressed, and a lot of the worries I had about Beyond Light prior to its release have pretty much become a reality. Now if you're enjoying Beyond Light, that's great, and I'm happy for you. Don't let me change your mind about the game if you love it. I'm just sharing my personal thoughts on it with this video, and it's alright if we have some disagreements. But I just had to let you guys know how I'm feeling about Beyond Light so far, because honestly...
Okay. Disappointed!
So first I want to call back to my previous video where I shared my concerns about Beyond Light's content. When I released that video 2 months ago, I received a decent amount of backlash for what I said in that video about how I was worried there wouldn't be enough content to justify the price tag. The fact that there are no new PvP maps, 1 strike, and no Gambit maps, and the fact that they're removing so much content and replacing it with so little content. I received a ton of comments saying, "Oh, you're wrong, it's going to be amazing. There's going to be way more content than they're showing us. This is basically Destiny 3, so it's going to be huge." But in the last few days, I haven't received any comments on that video saying I was wrong. Instead, I've been getting tons of comments saying things like, "Here to report on launch day that you were right," and "I think I owe you an apology," and plenty of other comments sharing a similar sentiment. People feel burned by Bungie with Beyond Light, and rightfully so, because it turns out that this isn't some Destiny 3 sized expansion. There wasn't really anything hidden from us. In fact, some things were seemingly cut from Beyond Light, like Hawkmoon's return, and are now instead part of Season of the Hunt. And it's not just on my old video where I'm seeing these comments. I've never seen the Destiny subreddit so upset. Now I know the Destiny subreddit has had its fair share of salt, but honestly, people on this subreddit usually are defending Bungie at every turn. But this time around, people are just not happy with Beyond Light, saying things like, "Why is there so little weapons? Outside of Europa, the game feels dead," and various calls to reverse sunsetting changes because the loot pool is so small, and plenty other valid complaints that really just highlight all the problems with Beyond Light. Right out of the gate, I have to share my biggest problems with the expansion itself. The first thing is the loot. Where the hell is it? Bungie has sunset a massive amount of weapons and armor, an insane amount to be honest. And the amount of loot here is laughable. For starters, there is no refresh to the world loot pool. You'll continue to get blue Forsaken World drops and weapons throughout the campaign. You'll also be receiving weapons from previous seasons like the Nature of Beast to drop out in the world. Hell, even Varix gives you a Long Shadow sniper from Forsaken after completing one of his quest steps. After the amount of sunsetting that has happened in this game, it's absolutely insane to me that they didn't even refresh the world loot pool. If you take a look at collections right now, you can see exactly how sad it's looking in the loot department. Beyond Light has brought so little new weapons and armor sets to the game that it's pretty baffling. Hell, there isn't even one single Void submachine gun or Void hand cannon that can be leveled past 1060 anymore. Not a single one. A $40 expansion that doesn't have one Void hand cannon or one Void submachine gun. I've never been against sunsetting in theory. I think it could have been great for the game, and it has been in the past, and that's why up to this point I've never had a problem with it. I always said sunsetting is great as long as it's implemented properly. But with Beyond Light, it's just not implemented properly, not even close. And at this point, there's just nothing to justify it. I also haven't been opposed to a smaller, more meaningful loot pool, but I didn't think that it would be this small and this bad. The tower vendors have also not received any refresh besides the one single armor set that looks the exact same for Gambit, Crucible, and the Vanguard, and the one pinnacle weapon, the adored sniper that can be earned in any of the activities. Iron Banner also didn't receive new weapons or armor sets, just reskins from year 1. And I gotta just pause here for a second because in Destiny 1 with their fall expansions, Bungie was able to create armor sets for Iron Banner, Crucible, Vanguard, Raid, Trials, each separate faction, and the World Pool, and here with Beyond Light they can only manage to make one for all 3 of the core activities, the Raid set, and Season Pass armor. And the same thing goes for the weapons in Destiny 1 where they had complete vendor refreshes for all the weapons in the Iron Banner, Crucible, Vanguard, Raid, Trials, Faction, and the World Pool, and there's barely any new weapons here. It's almost embarrassing how little content there is for a fall expansion. And before you say, "Oh, Bungie isn't with Activision anymore, they can't make content they made in D1, You're just flat out wrong because Activision simply published Destiny back then. They didn't have High Moon Studios or Vicarious Visions helping Bungie during Destiny 1 at all. Destiny 2 has been the only time Bungie had help from other studios in terms of creating content. Bungie alone created all the D1 content. Now I want to talk about the campaign. I did enjoy most of it. The missions themselves weren't too bad. The biggest problem I had though was about a third of the way into it kept throwing up power level roadblocks. After I started the third campaign mission, I was being nearly one-shot by everything, and it turns out that I was 26 power levels below the recommended level, which I was surprised to hit a power level roadblock considering I was 1050 when I started the campaign, which was just barely shy of the 1060 max at the start, so when I was being one-shot in the third mission, I was confused. But I realized this is Bungie's way of padding out the length of their campaign. Force you to increase power level to play the next mission. So instead of progressing through the campaign like I do in most expansions for Destiny, I instead backed out of the mission and loaded up some strikes for some gear drops. When I hopped into the strike playlist, one of the strikes didn't even work, and despite all of us being loaded in, it still wouldn't allow us to progress to the next area, so I had to reload the strike playlist again. I thought removing all this content was supposed to fix the game, right? After running those strikes, I came back to the campaign with a proper power level so I could progress it again. I finished the mission, then went on to continue to the next one, but was again underleveled by 20 power levels, forcing me again to go farm power levels to play the next mission. This just absolutely killed the campaign for me. I was genuinely enjoying it up to this point, but the power level roadblock absolutely killed any excitement I had to continue playing the game. Bungie opted to pad out the campaign's length with some arbitrary number. And I should mention that even with the padding, the Beyond Light campaign took me just over 3 hours to complete, which is pretty sad for a $40 expansion. After the campaign there was another quest given to me by Varix, but even that took just half an hour, and it was basically filled with busy work. So what is there to do after the Beyond Light campaign? Well, you can explore Europa, discover some of its hidden chests, and try running some lost sectors, but you'll probably need to grind a whole lot more power level to run the lost sectors, since they are at 1260 power level. And Europa is an awesome planet, and you could probably explore it for a few days and find it fun. Or I guess you could farm for the Adored Sniper Rifle in one of the core activity playlists. You get the option of completing this quest in either the Gambit playlist, Crucible playlist, or the Strike playlist. And like most Pinnacle weapons, it'll take a decent amount of time grinding. And what would have made this grind bearable was if there were new PvP maps to grind this quest out on, new Gambit maps to play on, or more than one strike added to the Strike playlist. This was one of my biggest worries for this expansion, the lack of content and core activities. Because now that the Beyond Light campaign is done, it's time to grind the one Pinnacle weapon quest and grind power level. And where can you do this? In the core activities. The core activities that received no new content besides one strike. Oh, it's not so bad, now we have Stasis. I gotta tell you guys, using Stasis on the same Gambit maps, PvP maps, and strikes is just not that interesting. Stasis is cool for sure, but I don't think it alone can make the core activities better. And I think that from this moment moving forward, there just can't be this kind of treatment to the core activities. For a fall expansion to add nearly nothing to them is just awful, and Beyond Light has proven that Bungie needs to make these core activities a priority for every fall expansion in the future. After the campaign, these activities need to have something new. For example, Taken King added not only 9 PvP maps, but added 3 game modes: Mayhem Clash, Rift, and Zone Control. Why haven't we seen a new PvP game mode in Destiny in so long? Why hasn't Rift returned? Why are there no PvP maps? And Taken King added 4 strikes, which kept the strike playlist alive and feeling fresh. On top of that, the strike-specific loot added to those strikes was incredible and could be farmed for and chased after, giving tons of replayability. Forsaken gave us 5 PvP maps, 4 strikes, and the entire Gambit mode along with all of its maps. Why is Beyond Light priced the same as Forsaken when it's given us nearly nothing for these core activities? Overall, Beyond Light is extremely underwhelming. Varix and Aramis both are good characters for this story, and I enjoyed their banter throughout the campaign, but the payoff for Aramis falls really flat again, similar to the ending of Shadowkeep, and the campaign is far too short to really give any sense of weight to the story. The Stranger didn't really explain anything about anything, and Eris, who has been dealing with this Darkness and Pyramid Ship storyline for so long, has said basically nothing the whole time. The story is over almost as soon as you begin it, even with the padding. Europa is a beautiful planet, one of Bungie's best looking planets, the atmosphere is great and the art direction is dang near perfect, but I think it suffers from a similar problem as Destiny 1 Mars did. It's empty. There's not much to it. It's an open wasteland, which again is perfectly fine in terms of the atmosphere and the art style they were going for, like Destiny 1 Mars. But again, like Destiny 1 Mars, it's just boring. And I hate to say that because I've been looking forward to this planet since 2014, but I gotta say that Europa is just disappointing. The return of the Cosmodrome isn't even a complete return, with parts of the map being inaccessible. None of the returning strikes they said were coming have been added yet, and it still feels empty. And I'm really not sure why there's nothing notable here at launch for the Cosmodrome. There's very little Beyond Light has done so far to impress me and convince me that it's worth the $50 to get Beyond Light and Season of the Hunt. And while I haven't played the raid yet, which I'm sure will be great just like many of the other raids, for me it's easy to say that this expansion is not worth the price of admission, or even worth your time if you have Game Pass, to be quite honest. There's a whole host of games on Game Pass that are way more worthy of your time. And without question, I will not be playing Beyond Light moving forward.